On Tech News Today, NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden confirms what everyone suspected about what the NSA does with private photos. Plus, can hackers help the North Korean people? And Hasbro comes out with a crazy marketing idea. Will it work? All that and more coming up right now on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, July 21st, 2014. This episode is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used Apple and Android devices are worth at Gazelle.com. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. Welcome to the show. I'm Mike Elgan, and with me, of course, is Jason Howell at the controls.
Hello.
He's a very controlling person.
That's right. I'll mute you. No, I won't. It's your show. I won't mute you.
And it's Monday, so we also have our Monday co-anchor, Lindsey Turrentine. Welcome, Lindsey.
Hi.
And your
Good
video
morning.
looks awesome. Looks
Yes, it's
fantastic.
all new and improved.
Yes.
Yes, I'm
very, very
excited.
cool. So we have a few stories here, some really interesting and quirky stories. Why don't we jump right into it? NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden claimed in an interview published over the weekend that military people working at the NSA sometimes shared sexually explicit pictures found during surveillance. He spoke via also a Google video hangout to the Planet Earth conference in New York, calling on developers to build security and privacy into everyday technology products, saying that his own future work would involve building such products. That sounded like Lindsey, that sounded like a pitch for a job, or he's going to be a consultant or something like that. I guess the guy has to make a living somehow. But it's kind of an interesting turn of events. I think that his revelations have probably done more to prompt companies, cloud service companies, software makers, app makers, to build security and privacy into everything. What do you think this guy can bring to the table? I mean, he's not really a developer, is he?
No, but he certainly knows what works and what doesn't in terms of securing the internet. I mean, he knows what you can get to and what you can't. And so his advice on that is probably invaluable to any developer out there who's working on some sort of security application. And his endorsement, I'm sure, would practically guarantee the success of any product that might claim to protect your privacy online.
Yeah. Now, he's recommended, it seems like every time he does an interview or something like that, he recommends one security product or another. For example, he's recommended Ghostery, NoScript, Tor, TrueCrypt. TrueCrypt, he recommended that before they had their troubles, where the developers of that product basically said that it wasn't secure. SpiderOak and Whisper Systems. So that's the complete list as far as I know of the products he's recommended explicitly. And I don't know, I guess his recommendations are pretty solid. He, like you say, he does seem to know what he's doing. Now, the other part of this that I thought was really interesting was the fact that he said that people were passing around naked pictures, basically, sexually explicit photos is the way the Guardian characterized it. And what was interesting about that is he said that they were mostly military people between the ages of 18 and 22 who were doing this. And this, to me, is the big revelation, not so much that they're passing around the photos, but that military personnel, presumably people in the Army or something like that, between the ages of 18 and 22, that's pretty young. That's like active duty, right out of high school type of military people, have access to surveillance information and apparently have the freedom to grab it, pass it around, or whatever, if in fact his observation is correct. Now, have you heard anything like this before, Lindsey? I mean, I haven't heard this claim before that that military people in the NSA with access to people's surveillance information.
I have not heard that before. I think it's, on one hand, it's a little bit shocking and crazy, but on the other hand, why wouldn't they? At the end of the day, I mean, we have some pretty normal military personnel trained to do things like fly and fire drones. They're going to be involved in complicated military activities, and I would assume that they get a lot of their information from the NSA. So if they're getting information from the NSA and the NSA information is related to their activities, if you've got a bunch of 18-year-old soldiers with access to porn, essentially, it's not surprising that they're going to pass it around. They are very young, though.
Yeah, it's incredible. You'd think that intelligence would be more senior people, no matter what part of the government they're in, whether it's the military or the NSA. And so, this is an interesting fact, and it sort of is supported by what Edward Snowden had said before through Glenn Greenwald, the author of No Place to Hide, and who is the main person to whom Edward Snowden leaked his trove of documents. Which is that essentially it's like Google. You can go into all this surveillance data and simply just search, just about anyone with access to this stuff can just search for whatever it is they're looking for. And presumably there's no safeguards on them looking up people they know personally for whatever personal reasons they might know. So obviously of the many reforms that are called for here, one of them, of course, is that, they've got to lock down who has access to what, and once they have access to certain material, what they can do with it, because that's a pretty outrageous thing. Although I think it does support what cynics have been snidely claiming the NSA has been doing for some time. So it kind of confirms our worst fears in that regard. Well, in just a sec. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it just confirms once more that the problem with having all of our information so readily available through surveillance is that the people who are surveilling are they're humans, they're people, they're fallible, and they are, they're going to do the things that people do when they're under pressure or just when they really want something. And that's what's scary at the end of the day about all of this. Right.
Especially when they don't believe that anyone will ever find out. So that's a big part of the problem. Well, in just a sec, we're going to hear about a new way to sort of break through the barrier created by an authoritarian government in Asia. But first, I want to tell you about Gazelle. Gazelle is a fantastic company that will buy your used gadgets. If you want to buy the latest gadget, for example, the Amazon Fire Phone comes out Friday, or any number of devices that are going to be coming out over the next few weeks, they'll buy your used gadget so you have more money freed up to buy your next gadget. And super easy to use. Just go to Gazelle.com. That's Gazelle.com. Find your item, tell the condition, and then just simply get the price. It's just that easy. And once you lock in that price, they'll honor that for 30 days. Now, they'll pay you by check, PayPal, or if you use the Amazon gift card option, you can get an extra 5%, which is a great option. That's the one I use, actually. Payment is fast, and it just happens within a few days of the item being received. And it's risk-free. As I said, the offers are good for 30 days. So once you lock in that price, you can wait up to a month, basically, and then send in your gadget, and that price will be honored even if the actual value of that device has declined during that time. And, of course, the prices are always declining in value. The older something is, the less value it is and the less money it's worth. So you want to lock in your price if you have any sort of device lying around. Just do it. Just check it out. Super easy and fast to do. And shipping is free, of course, and most items qualify for a free box. No listing hassles. There's just absolutely no reason not to use Gazelle. You've got devices laying around. Find them, plug them into Gazelle, send them back, and get paid fast. That's what I recommend that you do. Now, find out what your Apple or Android device is worth. Take a minute, go to Gazelle.com and find out. And do it now, because your device may lose value the longer you wait. So, Lindsey, it looks like somebody's trying to do something about North Korea, although there's not much we can do. But what's the idea here behind this so-called hackathon around North Korea?
Foundation is hosting a 2-day hackathon in San Francisco next week on August 2nd and 3rd. And the idea is that instead of brainstorming ways to hack into North Korea's, government infrastructure, they're discussing ways to get information through to North Korean citizens, because North Korean citizens are some of the most I don't know how to say it. They are.
It's the most Orwellian government on earth. That's for sure.
They don't get access to the outside. Only a few people in North Korea have internet connections. And so the idea here is to bring developers together to talk about ways to get information in.
Yeah, it's a great idea. The big risk, one of the big risks with sort of getting information to North Koreans, and there are 25 million North Koreans, by the way, is that if they're caught with some sort of device, they could be executed or sent off to a labor camp or something horrible, and these labor camps are terrible, by the way. If people go into these camps and they have kids, the kids go into the camp too. Some kids have grown up in their entire lives inside North Korean labor camps. Now, some of the current methods to smuggle information is on CDs and DVDs, USB sticks. People have tried radio, leaflets dropped from balloons, all kinds of things. But there've got to be better ways. I've got to think that there's got to be some way to drop in information that can be sort of destroyed, and so on. And again, one of the problems with North Korea as well is that nobody really wants the government to collapse, because that's the sort of doomsday scenario that governments like the United States and South Korea fear, because there would probably be millions of people streaming into South Korea, and they wouldn't be able to handle that logistically. But anyway, this is a really interesting use of, I guess, hacking skills. And one of the cool things about it is that they've got former North Koreans advising the whole thing, because again, you can't just send in radios or whatever, because there are certain restrictions that would put the recipients of those things at risk.
It's some of the things they've tried so far. One of the most interesting things, I think, is attaching USB sticks to balloons and sending them over the border. I think that that's still probably, it's an interesting effort. I'm really curious. I mean, there's a lot of poverty in North Korea. I'm really curious about whether anybody on the receiving end of a USB stick on a balloon is actually able to do anything with that information. But they're pretty much willing to try anything. And this kind of hacking it's probably not the traditional hacking that you think of when you bring a bunch of developers and together. This is essentially a giant brainstorming session to just think of any way they can to get information into people who probably don't have a lot of access to technology. I read a really interesting book that I highly recommend. It's fiction, but it's based on a lot of research, called The Orphan Master's Son. If anybody's interested in North Korea and the sort of insanity of the dictatorship there, it's a really amazing, although grueling read. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I'll have to check that out. Now, the one of the things, USB tied to a balloon is actually kind of hilarious, but that's actually that would be super ineffective, and that is exactly an illustration of what the problem is here. If you drop a USB thumb drive, essentially, one person has some old information, and what they really need is to figure out how to broadcast unblockable signals. I don't even know if that's possible, but that would be the home run. If there was to be some way to broadcast radio or some kind of video, but most likely audio, into that country in a way that couldn't be blocked by the government, that would be ideal, because then you could serve theoretically the entire country, not just one person, and it would be ongoing, consistent information that could include even emergency information or whatever. So I wish them luck. We'll certainly be following the story to see if they get anywhere with that. It's a worthwhile effort, and it's just a really interesting idea, I think. Well, Blackberry.
I can't wait to see.
Yeah, Blackberry has hired former Sybase president Marty Beard as chief operations officer. Natalie Gorgliotti is staff writer for ZDNet for CBS Interactive and joins us now. Welcome, Natalie.
Hi, thank you.
Now, you're in Jason Heiner's office, is that right?
Yes, I am.
All right. It looks very familiar. We've had Jason on the show many times, and so I welcome you here today. So can you tell us more about Marty Beard and where he came from?
Yeah, so, we found this to be pretty interesting. Marty Beard most recently was the chairman and CEO of LiveOps. But prior to that, he worked at Sybase, which Blackberry chief John Chen was the CEO there from 1998 until 2012. So they have quite a history together. And before that, he was with Oracle, and he was the VP of its e-commerce unit there.
Now, Chen, of course, has turnaround experience from Sybase itself, but does Marty Beard, I mean, what background does he have that makes him a good fit for BlackBerry?
Well, as far as what his relationship was in the turnaround, I haven't dug through all of that. I was really just drawing on the fact that they were both executives there at Sybase which was, in that critical time, they led 55 consecutive quarters of profitability, and which led to its acquisition by SAP. But I think his role at Blackberry, he's going to focus a lot on marketing and customer service, which, he certainly has a lot of his background in those two areas. So he should be an asset there as well.
What do you think he needs to do in terms of marketing to get BlackBerry back on its feet? I mean, I was in New York a couple of weeks ago and actually kind of surprised to see how many BlackBerries I still see on the street. Is there something special he needs to do to turn this around and to convince people that BlackBerry is not going to fail any minute? Right.
Well, of course, a lot of BlackBerry's bread and butter is, their government and their enterprise clients. But on the consumer side and, the civilian sector, it's sort of a joke. Some people are like, oh, I didn't even know BlackBerry was still around. So, their marketing really needs to focus on that of, just like you said, you were surprised to see, people with BlackBerry. So it's really critical for them to, get BlackBerry out of that, are they still around zone and really make them more, upfront and be more of a competitor with what most consumers are opting for and using today.
Do you think that the world has changed quite a bit for BlackBerry after the IBM Apple deal? I mean, I've heard opinions running the gamut from it won't impact them at all to this is a huge deal that completely changes everything for not only BlackBerry but Microsoft and Google as well. What's your view on that? Do you think it's a new world for BlackBerry?
I think it's going to be definitely a new world. How they manage that, we have yet to see. But it seems like they're going to be caught in the middle of an iOS and Android enterprise war, and that position could definitely hurt BlackBerry if they don't put their forces out properly and really try to market and keep those core clients that Apple and IBM are going to try to lure away.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we wish them luck. And Natalie Gagliardi, thank you so much for coming in on Jason Heiner's Skype connection. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks again. Well, Lindsey, Hasbro has an interesting marketing idea. I don't know if it's genius or completely foolish. What's going on there?
Well, I think it might be somewhere. It's a way to get attention right off the bat. According to Variety, Hasbro and a 3D printing company called Shapeways have paired up on a pilot project to let you print your own My Little Pony fan art, or kind of. What is actually happening is that Hasbro is selecting a few of what they call super fans to upload their custom pony art. And consumers can order those special editions to be printed and sent to their home, and the artists themselves get a cut of that work. So you can go to this superfanart.com site, upload your own pony art, but I think you have to apply to do that. And what it really seems like is going on here is that Hasbro is they're taking advantage of the brony culture. And if you don't know what that is, that's men who like My Little Ponies and are big fans, and sort of capitalizing on the campiness around that to see where it goes and whether or not they can make some money, having people order custom or sort of different versions of the ponies.
I learned what a brony is from Jeff Jarvis last year when he was complaining about Google's inability to accurately filter his incoming stream on Google+. He was complaining, stop giving me brony posts, and so we had a lot of fun with that on Google+ last year. But yeah, that's what a brony is. It's information I never wanted to know, but now unfortunately I know it thanks to Jeff Jarvis. So thank you, Jeff.
4 out of 5 of the artists on this site are men. I kind of love it. I think it's interesting, and they're unveiling the new creations at Comic-Con this week. Hasbro is starting with ponies, but they're going to see how it goes. And if people really start to order these, in any number, they'll start to extend the program to some other brands like Transformers and Magic the Gathering. That one I think would do very well. I could see some children I know spending a lot of money on Magic the Gathering.
Well, like I always say, you can't have too many My Little Pony figurines.
You always say that. That's right, Mike.
I've heard that so many times.
Yeah, people are sick of hearing me say that. So, Well, Twitter wants to improve its direct message feature to compete with mobile messaging apps like WhatsApp and Line. In a Wall Street Journal interview separately, Twitter's Vice President of International Operations, Shailesh Rao, said that the company hopes to compensate for slow Twitter user growth in the U.S. with more users in Latin America and Asia. And Lindsey Turrentine, this is yet another example of the big social networks, mostly it's been Facebook, really kind of freaked out about the movement to and the rapid growth of messaging apps like WhatsApp, and apparently these are really big in Asia, and so Twitter is really hoping to juice up its not just its user growth but also its revenues. Currently, 78% of Twitter's more than 255 million users are located outside the U.S. So that's 78% of Twitter users are outside the U.S., but only 28% of revenue comes from outside the U.S. And so they're seeing that as a big growth opportunity where they can sell more ads and have more business outside the U.S. But do you think it's too late for Twitter? I mean, these messaging apps are super popular.
I think that's a tough road to take, to be honest. I think trying to get in where WhatsApp has already succeeded, and there are a number of other apps around the world, sort of regionally, people have their preferences. I think their best bet is to try to get in on the ground in a place where there isn't currently a dominant messaging app. But I think it's going to be very difficult. I mean, when people think of Twitter, the brand, they think of essentially a way to broadcast your thoughts and not so much one-to-one conversation, although it does get used that way pretty frequently for people you don't know very well. I mean, I think Twitter direct messaging is often a way to meet somebody and to make contact with them if they're not somebody you would normally talk to personally. So I think it's going to be a brand challenge, and there needs to be some feature that is not available on some of the other DM apps. And I think that I haven't seen that yet. We'll see if they can come up with it.
Right. So specifically what they apparently are going to do is they're going to roll out an update that makes it easier to delete direct messages across web and mobile platforms. So you'll be able to see all of your direct messages in one place, maybe a separate app, and manipulate them, delete them, or whatever, more like a regular messaging app. My fear is that the more they mess around with what Twitter is, they've been talking about experimentation with getting rid of hashtags or the @ symbol or some of the little abbreviations that people use to do a retweet or whatever. And the more they erode the identity of Twitter, the more Twitter just becomes another site that's not different from other sites. I think that, yes, they can go after new users, but they don't want to lose their old users. They've got a great user base. A lot of famous people, a lot of TV shows use it. A lot of, singers, Lady Gaga type people have enormous fan bases on Twitter. And so they really don't want to wreck it with trying too hard to compete with upstarts. Now, it also has to be said that Twitter still hasn't turned a profit. They're still losing money after all this time. And so I guess they have to do something. I just hope that they don't wreck the service in the process.
Well, and their big challenge is getting people to come back more frequently. They don't have too much of a challenge getting, famous people to broadcast themselves on Twitter, but getting normal people who aren't instantly going to have 1 million+ fans to come back frequently and use the service is Twitter's giant challenge. And I actually think that the number one challenge for Twitter is essentially social anxiety. I think it's very hard for new people to come to Twitter, share their thoughts, and then kind of crickets. And if Twitter can make the service more personal, that will help them along the way. And I think that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's an even bigger problem in Google+. We learned some time ago, I think last year, that more than half of the posts on Google+ are not shared publicly. I think part of the reason is people don't know it's not public. They're posting and they think it's going out to the world, and it isn't. But the other one is the social anxiety, the sort of stage fright that people naturally have sometimes with posting publicly on a place like Twitter. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how it goes, and I hope they can figure out how to make some money, because we all use it, and it's a pretty good service.
Yep.
We told you Friday that Lenovo was ending sales in the United States of sub-10-inch Windows tablets because of low demand. Well, over the weekend, Lenovo posted a clarification. While they have canceled sales of the ThinkPad 8 tablet and they are out of stock on the 8-inch Mix product, they do plan to keep selling the Mix in the U.S. once they produce more, which should happen in time for the holiday buying season. Lindsey, Turrentine, this is really kind of interesting that they're actually out of mixed tablets and they're not going to have any for the next few months, but they're going to reintroduce them to the market in what, November, December? That's kind of weird, isn't it? Have you ever heard of a tablet product or any sort of product like this where they go dark for many months and then with the intention of coming back later?
I feel like, and I can't prove this, but I feel like this is a little bit of a marketing play here, right? Like it's creating a little bit of a supply and demand issue in order to have a reason to put some sparkle behind bringing it back for the holidays. I have never heard of anybody doing this, but it's kind of an interesting idea.
Yeah. Wow. And I think you might be right. That hadn't occurred to me, but I think that's got to be it, because I mean, would you run out of screens or something? I mean, it's just the idea of they must be manufacturing them and stockpiling them, because you're not going to really dismantle all the customizations you do at a factory and then put it all back together later. I mean, there would be no reason to do that. So I think you've got to be right there. It's got to be some kind of scheme that they're working on to have a big holiday season or something like that. Well, that is the tech news today. Lindsey Turrentine, where can people find your work on CNET?
They can find me on cnet.com, of course, and on Twitter at @LTurrentine.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Lindsey Turrentine is here as our co-anchor every Monday. So we'll see you next Monday.
See you next week.
All right. Well, subscribe to Tech News Today on iTunes, YouTube, Feedly, Yahoo, RSS, or many other options. Collect them all and share them with your friends. You can choose your favorite way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. Please follow us on Twitter. Tech News Today TV is our Twitter handle. And please send us your thoughts and opinions about the show, about technology news, about anything you like. Just send email to tnt@twit.tv or leave voicemail at 260-TNT-SHOW. And don't miss our evening newscast, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific tonight and every weeknight right here on the Twit Network. My name is Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.